Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Comic Book Wednesday. This is Epic Wednesdays, as it's characterized on Michael K Vaughan's channel. Over there at Stately Vaughan Manor, he has taken on the prospect of looking at every one of Marvel Comics' Epic Collection reprint volumes. Very nice, very stylish, paperback full-color reprint volumes of their entire vast catalog. And when the Epic Collections were introduced, one of the selling points was that they are different. Marvel also produces the Marvel Masterwork series, a hardcover reprint series of their vast back catalog that is being done in strictly chronological order. And when the Epic Collections were introduced, the publicity PR people at Marvel Comics said one of the interesting features about the Epic Collections is that it won't do that. It'll bounce all around. So if you're looking for the very first Epic Collection of, for instance, the X-Men, it will probably be the all-new, all-different X-Men. It'll probably be Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum and John Byrne. It'll probably be that storyline, and then you'll get to the first few issues of the X-Men at some other point. The Epic Collections don't feel bound by chronology, and that makes them very interesting to watch. It makes it very interesting to see what's coming out. There are new Epic Collections virtually every week from Marvel. I think you could easily get one every week, and there's a vast number of them already. And I think Michael K Vaughan has them all. So I horned into his event, and we are now the world's finest team talking about an Epic Collection a week and ruminating about the period, the run, the concept, all that sort of thing. And some of you the more bloodthirsty among you have noticed that sometimes Michael and I disagree. Some of you have even tuned into these videos hoping that we will disagree. Because when we disagree, we tend to disagree a lot. When he calls things great that are quite obviously steaming piles of cow poop. And I'm afraid those of you who are bloodthirsty along those lines are going to be disappointed this week, because as he predicts in his video on this particular Epic Collection, I'll leave a link to it down below, I do like the stuff that he's talking about here, although I do have my complaints. This is an Epic Collection called Spider-Man No More. And here we have a John Romita cover, retouched, redone. The original didn't look like this, and it wasn't a cover. But there you have Spider-Man fighting the Hulk with that era's Avengers rushing in to either help the Hulk or to help Spider-Man. No idea. But you've got Thor and Iron Man. You've got Goliath in the background there, Hawkeye and Captain America. And this cover is actually one of my complaints about this collection. This collection is Stan Lee writing Spider-Man. All of the jitters, the awkwardness, all of the I'm not quite sure what this is, any of that was present with Spider-Man at the beginning. And I would argue, I think Michael would probably agree, that Spider-Man is one of the Marvel characters where Stan Lee sort of got right away. He didn't need to settle in and figure out what he was doing. But any hint of that is gone by now. These issues are clean, well-working machines of entertainment. They are fantastic, just fantastic issues. Another point that Michael makes in his video about this collection is that Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery just goes from strength to strength. Largely, I think, because you've got first of all, you've got great character designs. And those are all John Romita Sr., who is the artist for most of this issue. John Romita Sr. Didn't at first seem like the natural choice for a Spider-Man comic, but then I myself think that he isn't the natural choice for a superhero comic at all. I think if Western comics, or especially romance comics, had continued to be popular, he would just have stayed in that line and not drawn costume superheroes at all. Turns out that would have been a loss. He's very, very good at it. And he's also very good at design and consistency of design, which is why he later on became sort of for years and years, decades and decades, the unofficial and then the official image continuity czar of Marvel Comics, for want of a better title. He became sort of the art director. So that if you had a new artist drawing some character, John Romita Sr. would be looking over the pages to make sure that the visuals were in line with everything about that character that had gone before. That can have side effects. We will see some of those side effects when we're looking at Epic Collections. One of the less glamorous side effects, probably predictable, is that sometimes Romita would get a panel or even a whole page by another artist and just throw it out and draw the whole thing himself, because he didn't like the way it looked and there was no one who could gainsay him. And one of the reasons why he had that kind of unofficial power is because of the iconic work he did on Spider-Man. When you think about Spider-Man, no matter if you've seen in the movies metal legs coming out of the back of the suit, or eyes disappearing, or the cowl disappearing, or the color scheme changing, no matter any of that, when you think of Spider-Man, you are largely thinking of John Romita Sr.'s work, not Steve Ditko, the artist who created Spider-Man with Stan Lee. And I like that. I very much liked that change. I was kind of waiting for it when I was reading these issues. I was happy to see it start to happen. I was a little bit frustrated with these issues when I first bought them, because for a few of these issues, it feels like forever. It feels like a lot more than a few. For a few of these issues, John Romita Sr. is inked by Don Heck, who's an artist that we've mentioned before in Epic Wednesdays, and he is very good, but he is totally incompatible with John Romita Sr. And I have to think that John Romita would have been the person who would most have known that. He wasn't an amateur. He knew what his pencils looked like compared to what they looked like when Heck was done with them. Maybe there was just nobody else. Maybe John Romita Sr. is a very, very good inker. Fantastic inker of his own work and everybody else's. And I've mentioned this before, John Romita Sr.'s son, John Romita Jr., eventually became an artist at Marvel Comics, and it wasn't nepotism. He is blindingly talented, incredibly talented. A must-buy author for me even now, when he's got to be, approaching 60. As unthinkable as that is for how he used to fill out silky running shorts. but he's a fantastic artist in his own right, and his art style doesn't bear much in common with his father's. And John Romita Sr. stayed on at Marvel Comics in their good graces, on their payroll, long enough to ink some Spider-Man issues drawn by his son, and they are beautiful. They are things to behold. And he isn't always inked by Don Heck in these issues, and these issues are classic Spider-Man. Spider-Man started out as Stan Lee's sort of riposte to larger-than-life heroes, larger-than-life superheroes, the kind that are worth reading about, that we're never going to get to in Epic Wednesdays, because the Epic Collection is for Marvel, where all the characters are in psychotherapy, instead of DC, where all the characters are out saving the world. Maybe we'll switch. Maybe we'll get to DC. When we run out of Epic Collections, maybe Michael K. Vaughan will consent to renaming this whole thing World's Finest Comics, and then we can just go anywhere. But in the meantime, this is quintessential Stan Lee vision of his heroes. Spider-Man is a tough luck hero. He gets the flu. He has ulcers. In these issues, he wrenches an arm and has to fight criminals in his Spider-Man costume with his arm in a sling. There's a period here where he is amnesiac, and he loses his memory for a couple of issues. And unlike in any other superhero comic where the superhero loses his memory and has to go through a whole bunch of really clever Agatha Christie-style plot twists in order to figure out who they are, the main concern of Spider-Man when he loses his memory is that he's really hungry. He doesn't know where he lives. He has to steal a sandwich because he's famished. He has to sleep on rooftops in the cold. That is pure Stan Lee. And the shift from Steve Ditko to John Romita Sr. signaled, I think, a greater confidence in the character, where suddenly Ditko could not draw Spider-Man heroically. He tried a couple of times, and he couldn't do it. His Spider-Man is creepy. He's lurky. He's lurchy. He's hunchy. And John Romita couldn't draw that to save his life. So instead, in these issues, we get a heroic Spider-Man. Michael K. Vaughan points out in his video that Peter Parker starts to look like a Hollywood star. He stops looking like a gawky kid and starts looking like a handsome young man. And that template stayed true. One of the little things I've noticed about Spider-Man I've been reading Spider-Man from the beginning, and one of the things I've noticed about him after the John Romita Sr. era and for every era that followed is a kind of unspoken rule among Spider-Man writers right down to the present day that Peter Parker is a super hottie. There is increasingly little reason why he would be such a sad sack in his social life, because he's built, he fills out suits or t-shirts, and he's handsome. He's smart, sarcastic. He's not the high school reject loser that we meet at first in Amazing Stories. So that starts here. And here we have Spider-Man again tries to find employment, this time with the Avengers instead of the Fantastic Four. It still doesn't work out. And he fights a whole bunch of villains. The Vulture, 2 of them. one Vulture's trying to horn in on the action of the original Vulture. The Rhino, Kingpin, Wilson Fisk is introduced here and is a formidable character right from the beginning. Stan Lee is very cagey about saying explicitly whether or not Kingpin has any superpowers. Instead, he's just a mass of muscle and fast. Technically, that shouldn't delay Spider-Man for long. There's a graphic in this epic collection of Spider-Man lifting over his head a platform on which are standing the handful of Marvel characters who are stronger than he is. I was shocked to hear Michael K. Vaughan say in his video that he was surprised that Prince Namor the Submariner was on that platform. According to the greatest book ever written, I refer, of course, to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the deluxe edition, the full-color omnibus hardcover of which I still have not bought. Incredible. I still have not bitten the bullet, and bought that thing. I know I would have read it front to back 10 times by now. I know it would be money well spent, but I haven't done it yet. But nevertheless, I have it by heart. Okay? And Prince Namor the Submariner, when he is fully hydrated, when he's not pining for water, he's amphibious, and he tends to lose power when he's away from water. When he's fully hydrated, he's Hulk-level strength. Okay? 85 tons. Spider-Man, 10, 15 tons, maybe. On a good day, maybe. And Spider-Man is not invulnerable. And Prince Namor the Submariner is. And if Prince Namor the Submariner is perfectly capable of living on land, he doesn't need to be in the water. He is an amphibian. So he can live without being on water, but he gets weaker and weaker, to the point when, we're told, he reaches his weakest point, and his weakest point, when he's been out of water for a long time, he can lift 40 tons. 4 times as much as Spider-Man. In other words, Spider-Man compared to him is a small child. So yeah, Prince Namor is stronger than he is. I think there's a strong case to be made that Iron Man should be on that platform. He's not, but he should be. Iron Man's armor can also lift in the 80-ton range, and could even when that picture was drawn. That's much, much stronger than Spider-Man. Hercules is on that because he's class 100 strength. 100 tons at least is what he can lift, with no upper limit fully set. Thor is there, 100, class 100 strength. The Hulk, when the Hulk is enraged, is class 100 strength. When he's not enraged, he's not. He's 85 to 90 tons. But when he is enraged, it goes off the charts. And also the Thing, who is in Prince Namor's reign, 80 to 85 tons. Those characters are handily stronger than Spider-Man. I've always been curious to know, as long as I'm digressing here, I've always been curious to know what Goliath's limit is. It's always so weird, the way he's portrayed in the classic run of the Avengers that we will get to. It's always weird how he's portrayed. He's portrayed as a thunderingly powerful character, but clearly not. Clearly his super strength has limits. And clearly he's actually less physically strong than any of the other characters, especially the villains, that we meet later on who gain the ability to grow super big. They all seem to have super strength, and he doesn't seem to have it in the same way. But here, Spider-Man is in full possession of his powers, but he is still a sad sack. He has to fight the Lizard with one arm. He has to fight Dr. Octopus over and over again, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Dr. Octopus, I've complained about this before, he's the classic Spider-Man villain, aside from the Green Goblin. But it never makes any sense. Dr. Octopus is an overweight, middle-aged scientist who develops a way to cybernetically link a set of superpowered metal arms to his abdomen so that they obey his mental commands. That's Dr. Octopus. Which means, I mean, in the issue here, Dr. Octopus causes Aunt May to have a fainting spell, and that enrages Spider-Man so much that he decides to hunt Dr. Octopus through the realms of the underworld, to tear apart their bases and whatnot, to find him, find out where he is, and take him out of the picture forever. And we see him, in the course of that vendetta, tearing these hideouts apart, ripping metal off doors. Because Spider-Man, despite the fact that he's not in Prince Namor's range, he's still inhumanly powerful. And many, many times when he fights Dr. Octopus, including in the issues in this collection, there are many, many times when he gets past the guard of those metal arms and punches Otto Octavius in the face. That would, even if Spider-Man is pulling his punches, that would take Dr. Octopus's head off. if Spider-Man is pulling his punches a lot, it would still immediately incapacitate the man. There's no... Otto Octavius himself is not superpowered. And I know that comics later on, much later on, a writer addresses this, has Otto Octavius so enfeebled by the beatings he's taken over the years that he's a husk of his former self. But that doesn't stop it from making... It still doesn't make any sense here. Those fights would be over. Spider-Man is fast enough to get past those arms and strong enough to incapacitate their wielder in one punch. But it never happens. Never. The same thing is true with Kingpin. He might be big and really, you know, deceptively muscular, so it looks like fat, but it's all like muscle. But if Spider-Man punched him in the jaw, the jaw would turn to powder. It would crystalline. Those are complaints of a more meta nature. I'm certainly not complaining about the execution of these issues. They are fantastic. I will, however, offer one complaint about the Epic Collection itself. This run that this Epic Collection puts together for Spider-Man has lots and lots of highlights, including, as Michael points out, the introduction of Mary Jane Watson. Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. But it has one absolutely iconic issue. One issue where if you look at the back issue collectibles market, the issues running up to this number will cost you, in mint condition, will cost you a pretty penny. Then all of a sudden it spikes to 10 times that amount for one issue, and then it goes back down to normal because one of the issues in here is absolutely iconic. And it's iconic enough, as Michael points out, to have been captured in the movies. And it's iconic right from its cover. If John Romita Sr. gives you a cover like the one he gave you for Spider-Man No More, you don't use this cover for a collection, especially if you're going to call it Spider-Man No More. There's an issue where Peter Parker decides, I've had enough of this. I'm putting myself and my loved ones in danger. I'm going to hang it up. I'm going to put my Spider-Man suit in the garbage and just be Peter Parker. You will, if you don't know these issues, you'll remember that sequence from the first Spider-Man movie, starring a 40-year-old tobacco addict named Tobey Maguire, who was about as suited to play Spider-Man in a spandex suit as I am. This has been the curse of Spider-Man on the big screen, unfortunately. We had Tobey Maguire drastically miscast. Someone who obviously had nothing but contempt for the role that he was playing. He was just offered a table of cocaine money. And then once we get past a fat, balding, 40-year-old cigar-chomping golf aficionado as a teenage Peter Parker, then we get Andrew Garfield, who looked a little more like the part, but Andrew Garfield is really hampered by the fact that he is a nuclear, Chernobyl-level a-hole. And he is... Some of you may have met these kinds of a-holes in your real life. There are a-holes, and then there are some Chernobyl-level a-holes that are such a-holes that they can't even hide the fact when they themselves know they should. When they know it would be to their benefit to hide it. They still can't hide it. It's in their posture, for God's sake. It's in their eyes. It's in their hair. And that is true of Andrew Garfield. He was a more on-book look for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. But you hate him when he's on the screen. You absolutely hate him. Even when he's trying to be likable. He's an absolute spider douche. And then that was changed. Just when I was thinking, hey, maybe this is cursed, then we get Tom Holland. Another 10-pack-a-day tobacco addict. He's 4'5", and his American accent is not as convincing as his worshipful acolytes all around him tell him. And in addition to that, what is the character that he plays? He plays Spider-Boy. The Comicsgate channels refer to him that way disdainfully, and in this case, they're right. He plays a Spider-Man who doesn't know what he's doing. It's a squeaky kid's voice, always asking for help from the grown-up superheroes. Who wants to go and see that? That wasn't Spider-Man for more than a year on his own book. And I just saw the teaser trailer for the new Spider-Man movie, and it's the same thing. It's Spider-Boy asking for help from the seasoned heroes. It's a Doctor Strange movie with Spider-Man as a sidekick. We'll have to see. I've heard rumors. I've heard the same rumors you have, that the Into the Multiverse, the Spider-Man movie that's coming out that was teased, has not only Alfred Molina as the return of Dr. Octopus. That's wonderful on its own, and that's wonderfully done in the teaser. But the rumors are also that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are both in this movie as alternate reality versions of Spider-Man. don't know how that's going to work. We shall see. I don't know if that rumor's true. How did I get on this subject? Oh, yeah. The reason why I'm holding up a electronic cover here is because I don't have this Epic collection in this form. I once did. I got it at the comic shop. It was a slow week at the comic shop. I felt like I should spend some money there, so I bought this instead of any individual issues. That often happened when I went. I have a sweet tooth for collections and omnibus editions and whatnot, and not for the individual issues anymore. But the reason I'm holding this up is because I don't have this anymore. Instead, I have something that I think Michael confirmed are not made anymore. Those Marvel Masterworks series that I talked about, those are hardcover volumes for $75 a pop. But for a while, Marvel also reprinted those in paperback with redone covers, recolorized covers. And they did that for the Marvel Masterworks volume that covers the exact same range as this Epic collection. Only they split it in two, because why not? If you can give it attractive new-ish cover art, then you can get collectors to buy the same thing multiple times. And I already had these, so I don't know why I bought the Epic collection, but I got rid of it. I sent it to a good home. I sent it to a farm in upstate New York where it gets to roam free. But instead, I have the Marvel Masterworks volumes of these issues. And you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the coloring has been redone for these covers so that they don't look like their original versions anymore. And on the back, you get the covers of all the issues that are in there. Classic John Romita stuff, just classic. And the reason why I'm complaining about using this cover for a Marvel Epic collection is because this is the cover of Spider-Man No More. And can we find that space in here? That is not something that you want to replace. Okay? If you have a cover like that, you want to use that cover. Spider-Man No More. Oh, yes, there it is. Okay, here's the issue. Where see, there's the classic panel where he dumps his Spider-Man costume in the garbage in the rain. This will confuse some of you. Once upon a time, there was a thing in American cities called litter. It doesn't exist anywhere except in California and Portland now, but everywhere else in the country, there's no litter. And also, that is a garbage can. You might say, well, that can't be a garbage can. It's made of metal. Yeah, they used to be made of metal. He just dumps his costume in the garbage and walks away because he's going to give up on being Spider-Man. And that is the cover. See? So that is the original cover with the pricing and the comics code and whatnot. And this is the redo where they deepen the dark parts. They enhance it with special effects. Either way, it's an absolute masterpiece. And you don't use anything else on the cover of a title of a collection you're calling Spider-Man No More. You use this. But I have these two. So I didn't bother with keeping that Epic collection. I realized, I like new stuff from, old stuff, new collections from Marvel as much as anybody. But I am trying hard not to fall into the same trap with graphic novels, comic book collections that I've fallen into with the books that I love, Dracula or Moby Dick or War and Peace. I'm trying hard not to have multiple copies of the same things. There just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of point to it. So I'm just keeping these instead. They're every bit as good. It's just two of them instead of one. So that's your Epic Wednesdays for today. Spider-Man No More. Spider-Man, the comic book in 500 issues, has had a number of terrific runs. Just epic runs. And a couple of those runs were Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. And we'll be getting to them. I don't think, I love these issues, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that Michael K Vaughan would disagree with me when I say that this is not, there's no run here. It's Lee and Romita showing up for every issue, but there's no standout brilliant story here. Like, for instance, a little later than these issues, Lee and Kirby did a story involving the mob and Silvermane and a tablet that is rumored to have the secret of eternal youth. That plotline extended over many issues and climaxed in a few issues that also involved the Lizard. And that is an epic story of a type that I don't think there's anything like that in these issues. They're very good. But mainly for showing the difference between John Romita and Steve Ditko. I remember when I was looking at these, it was the Vulture issues. Unfortunately, since this is not one volume, it's not as easy for me to find. But in the Vulture issues, There's a page layout that, yeah, it's in this one, that perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about, the difference between Steve Ditko, the fact when you know that you're not looking at Ditko anymore. There's a page layout in the Vulture issue, I believe it is. It's not the Lizard, right? It's the Vulture issue. There's a page layout that could only have been done by John Romita Sr. There's no way that Ditko, it would never have crossed his mind to do. Kraven the Hunter. Another guy with almost normal abilities that somehow manages to get punched by Spider-Man over and over again. Yes, here we are. Look at this page. This is lovely. Spider-Man is ailing. He's not being beaten by a third-rate second knockoff Vulture. Here, he gets knocked to a snowy rooftop, and the Vulture's done with him. And Spider-Man is so ailing that he can't even get up. And the book ends with that panel. And that is, you know, you've got Spider-Man on the snow. There's no dialogue. There's no nothing like that. You've got the brickwork on the roof, hand-drawn buildings in the background there. And that is a pure example of Stan Lee saying, all right, well, I'm dealing with a different artist. Ditko would never do this. But John Romita does this, and he makes it work. Absolutely makes it work. I love moments like that in any comic run that has just undergone an artist switch. Because it's that moment when you know that the artist has been told, well, your work is great, it's different from your predecessor, but that is now officially okay. And John Romita Sr. ran with that. In the issues that follow these issues, in the 20 issues that follow these issues, he runs with that. Also helps that he gets a fantastic colorist and a fantastic inker. No more of this Don Heck. That stuff. We'll get to those. Those have been collected in Epic Collections, so we'll get to them. But as far as I know, we're not doing Spider-Man next week for our next Epic Wednesday. I will tease you only by saying, I think, if I remember correctly from a message that Michael sent me, he is finally going to have our Epic Wednesdays touch on a character that I deeply love at Marvel. The character at Marvel who does not have feet of clay, who is not in Freudian analysis. If that's true, we'll have a humdinger of a time. So, you comics fans, you know where to tune in. I'll leave a link to Michael's channel down below. And next Wednesday, we'll talk about the next Epic collection he picks from his huge collection. So I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.